My life changed unexpectedly 5 years ago when my mother died and left our family house. Since I moved back in, this comfortable 3-bedroom house in a respectable area has been my haven. Along with the house, I acquired a good amount of money. A boon. There is no mortgage to worry about. I even had the opportunity to renovate, thereby transforming the space to really seem like my own. I wish I could say things were easy sailing after that, but life, as it often does, threw me a curveball in the form of my half-brother, Alex. I grew up in a house full of memories. Although we have a father, that marks the limit of our commonalities. Alex is the kind who constantly has a ready-made justification for why things haven't worked out. He is the kind who can't keep down a job for more than a few months. Our dad passed just a few years before Mom, and Alex used that as another excuse for allowing his life to collapse. He wanders from one relationship to the next like it's a casual hobby, a pattern he's followed for as long as I can remember. He would contact me every now and then, weaving some sad tale on how unfair life was. Well, Alex's family is the reason I always tried to be encouraging. Things came to a climax about a year and a half ago when Alex was kicked from his apartment for non-payment of rent. Claiming he had nowhere to go and sorely needed aid, he phoned me in a panic. Knowing how he worked, I first hesitated. Should I let him in, he would probably use my generosity. That stung because he wasn't wrong. Then came the guilt trip. You're all I have left. If Mom were still here, she would want you to help me. Mom constantly aimed to keep us close even when Alex was making mistakes. Against better judgment, I so yielded. He could spend some time with me just till he recovered, I advised him. Alex arrived with just a few suitcases and started right away at home. Big error. It was originally not too horrible. He was acting appropriately, most likely afraid about being expelled. Surprising me even was his occasional housekeeping assistance. But the fissures showed through as the weeks stretched into months. Alex's temporary visit became a permanent residence. He wasn't even looking for a job, wasn't helping with bills, and he wasn't paying rent. He would have some ready response every time I brought it up. I'm looking, but no one's hiring right now, or I just need a little more time to get my head straight. Meanwhile, he spent most of his days hooked to the TV, playing video games, or hanging out with friends. I ought to have kicked him off there right away, but I didn't. I kept urging myself he would finally get it together. Then Alex met Natalie, his new girlfriend, and I started to feel guilty about tossing my only brother out on the street. Originally, I gave it little thought. Alex had a different girlfriend every year. Natalie was unique, though. She stayed longer than the others, and before I knew it, she was almost living at my house as well. She ate my food, used my utilities, and acted as though she owned the house. She was over all the time. Though I bit my tongue, not wanting to start an argument, things grew more tense when Natalie became pregnant. Panicked, Alex broke the news when she called one night. I wasn't sure how to respond. I was glad for him on the one hand, hoping this would be the impetus he required to mature. I, on the other hand, worried. Alex could hardly take care of himself, let alone a baby. I froze when he said he and Natalie were getting married. It seems hurried. Alex hardly had a history of steady relationships. They had just been together for a few months. He claimed, nonetheless, that it was the appropriate behavior for the infant. I did not dispute. My business was not this one. Who was I to dispute with if he felt that marriage to Natalie would somehow magically solve problems? With just a few friends as witnesses, the wedding was a brief, hurried event at the courthouse. Though I didn't let it show, I wasn't even invited, which stung a little. Later that day, Alex and Natalie arrived at the house, beaming like lottery winners. Now that they were married, Alex wanted Natalie to move in permanently. I hesitated. He stated it would be healthier for the baby, and they would need the extra room for all the stuff involved in having a child. Although my house wasn't particularly small, adding another person, especially a pregnant one, would make a difference. Natalie also had previously begun rubbing me the incorrect way. She wasn't particularly nasty back then, but she had this aura about her, as though she believed she was better than me. Alex was family, though, and I didn't want to be the horrible guy turning away aid. I thus answered yes. The second error was that one. Natalie relocated formally a few days later, and from the first day, things began to change. She left her belongings strewn all over the living room, reorganized the kitchen, and grumbled about how I kept the house, as if she owned it. At first, I attempted to ignore her disparaging comment about my furniture, that it was a little antiquated. She seemed to be adjusting, maybe feeling a bit uncomfortable. Still, her attitude grew more negative. She began asking me to run errands for her and Alex or make dinner for her since she was too tired. I was already letting them live in my house rent-free, so now I was expected to be their personal chef and delivery service. The worst aspect was her treatment of me. Natalie spoke down to me in a condescending manner, like I was some naive young person ignorant of household management. Alex, of course, would see no issue with her passive-aggressive remarks on how much better things would be once the kid arrived, suggesting that my house wasn't good enough for them. His shrug and "she's pregnant, man" cut her some slack when I brought it up, were beginning to wear thin. Then came the bombshell. Natalie sat me down one evening with a solemn look as though she were ready to have a life-changing chat. I considered maybe she would be apologizing for her actions, or even discuss their intentions for moving out once the kid came. She said, "We've been talking, and with the baby coming, we think it's best if you find somewhere else to live." I gazed at her, waiting for the joke, but it never came. She had altogether another in mind. "Excuse me?" I asked, trying to keep my cool. "Well," she began, "it's just that we need the space. It's going to be really awkward having you here with a newborn. Don't you think it would be better for everyone if you found your own place?" I couldn't believe my ears. I said as gently as I could, "Natalie, this is my house." She blinked, as though the words hadn't registered. "Yeah, but Alex said it was inherited, so it's his too, and since we're married, that makes it mine as well. It's just weird, you know, living with your husband's brother and a baby." She felt Alex owned the house. "Alex doesn't own this house," I remarked, staring back at Natalie. I turned to him, anticipating him to leap in and fix her, but he just sat there avoiding eye contact. "I do. You two are living with me, not the other way around. Your mom passed away and I inherited it." Natalie's face reddened. She snapped, "What are you talking about?" "Alex stated." "Alex lied," I said. "This house is mine. You and Alex have no claim to it." She scowled at Alex, who at last stammered, "I didn't lie. I just didn't correct her." Natalie said nothing else. Rising, she hurried off to their room and shut the door. I sat there for some minutes trying to make sense of what had just transpired. It astounded me Alex had let her think the house belonged to him. His intended course of action was just to keep the hoax running indefinitely. I foolishly assumed things would calm down after Natalie stormed off. I figured they had been living on my generosity all this time, and she simply needed some time to digest the reality that Alex did not own the house. But I was quite off. The sound of yelling woke me up the next morning. Already at it, Alex and Natalie's voices rang over the walls. I tried first to overlook it. It wasn't their first fight. I doubted it would be their last. Natalie yelled. I couldn't make out Alex's reaction, but whatever he said just made her angrier. "Why would you let me think you owned the house, Alex? Do you know how embarrassing this is? Your brother basically called me a freeloader." "Well, Alex made it sound like the house was his," she said. "Humile you, Natalie. This is my house. Did you really think you had the right to kick me out of my own house?" I inhaled deeply, attempting to keep cool, and asked, "How was I supposed to know?" She said, "Look, I'm sorry this came as a shock, but the fact is Alex doesn't own this house. I do. And I'm not going to let anyone, family or not, tell me I need to leave my own home." She barely said something under her breath and headed into the kitchen. She was banging cabinets making breakfast, and I decided it would be better to let her have some room. Still, the drama continued beyond that. Alex dropped by to chat later that evening. "Hey, guy," he said. "We need to talk about what happened." I crossed my arms and leaned against the doorframe. I could tell he was uneasy, shifting his weight from one foot to the other like a youngster about to confess to smashing a window. "Go ahead." "Natalie's rather offended," he remarked, rubbing the back of his neck. "I believe maybe you could have handled things better." "Handled things differently," Alex said. "She tried to kick me out of my own house." "Yeah, but you didn't have to tell her like that," he said. You could have just let her think. Let her think what? That you own this place? That she has some kind of claim to it? No, Alex. I'm not going to lie to protect your ego. This is my house, and you both need to respect that. Alex looked annoyed, but did not say anything else. That night, Natalie packed a bag and departed to live with her mother. He simply turned away, murmuring something about how I was making things more difficult than they ought to be. She simply walked out the door, not saying goodbye or explaining. Alex skipped after her, but I sensed he was offended. The next day, things went even worse. He spent the remainder of the evening pouting in the living room, surfing TV channels without really watching anything. Alex arched an eyebrow as I entered the kitchen for breakfast. He was obviously still simmering over the whole matter and not hesitant about telling me so. "This is all your fault, you know," he remarked. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My fault? How is this my fault, Alex? If you would have just gone along with it, none of this would have happened. Natalie wouldn't have left, and things would have been fine. Alex, you let your wife believe you owned this house. You lied to her, and now you're mad at me for telling her the truth? That's on you, not me. Alex rolled his eyes. You're so selfish, man. You don't care about anyone but yourself. That was the last straw. He responded. Selfish? I've let you live here rent-free for over a year, Alex. I've covered your bills, put up with your crap, and now you're calling me selfish? You're unbelievable. He grabbed his coffee and went back to sulking. Alex doubled down a few days later, even though I thought maybe the battle with Natalie would be the wake-up call he needed. I have been living here for more than a year, he continued, crossing his arms as though he were ready to apply the law. That gives me some rights, you know. I watched him, trying to make sense of what he was saying. Rights? Alex, what are you talking about? He asked smugly. Legally, you cannot simply kick me out. I couldn't believe the arrogance. I've been here long enough that I am considered a tenant, even though I am not paying rent. You cannot make me leave. He shrugged. So let me get this straight. You've been freeloading in my house for over a year, and now you think you have the right to stay against my will? I'm just saying you might want to think twice before trying to throw me out. That was the instant I understood just how far gone Alex was. He obviously didn't value what I had done for him, and he wasn't going to be leaving on his own. If he so desired to play this game, great, I would do it as well, but as said, on my terms. Following Alex's I have rights statement, I looked into tenancy rules. As it happens, he was correct technically. I couldn't simply order him to go. He had been living there for more than a year. I had to evict him via the correct legal procedures. It made sense only in retrospect. This was my house, the place I grew up in, and just now I had to go through hoops to get my freeloading half-brother out. If that's what it took, then so be it. I sat Alex down the following day to try one more time to straighten things out without engaging the law. Alex, I said, this isn't working anymore. You need to move out. I'll give you some time to figure things out, but I can't keep letting you live here rent-free. You're about to have a baby. You need to get your act together. He merely chuckled. Where am I expected to go? I don't have the money for a new house, and Natalie's not going to let me stay with her parents forever. You're your brother. You're supposed to assist me, I shot back. I have been helping you for almost a year. I gave you a place to stay when you had nowhere else to go, but instead of using that time to get back on your feet, you've been using me. I can't do it anymore. Alex rolled his eyes. Anyway, man, you can't kick me out anyhow. I have rights, remember? I could feel my fury boiling, but I stayed cool. Fine. If that's how you want to play it, I'll go through the legal process. But one way or another, you're leaving. That evening, I completed the paperwork to initiate the eviction process. Although he had left me without an option, it felt strange evicting my own brother. To see that everything was in order, I also contacted a lawyer. Alex was enraged when he discovered I wasn't about to chance finding some loophole to stay longer. He charged me with betraying him, of being callous, of not giving family any thought. You're kicking me out when I'm almost to have a baby, he screamed. What kind of person does that? I avoided the trap. What kind of person takes advantage of their brother's kindness and then tries to claim they have the right to stay in his house without paying a dime? I shot back. The following few weeks were awful. Alex swung between open hatred and guilt-tripping me. He would be apologizing and claiming he would try harder one minute, then screaming about how I was destroying his life. Still, I held to my guns. I was willing to let him control me, but Natalie arrived one evening, and it marked a turning point. She had been staying at her mother's since the fight, but now she was back and unhappy. "Do you know what you're doing to my family?" she asked right away as she walked in. "Alex is stressed out, I'm stressed out, and this is the last thing we need with a baby on the way. Can't you just let us stay until we figure something out?" I inhaled deeply. "Natalie, I understand this is a tough situation, but I've been more than patient. I've given you both plenty of time to get your lives together, and instead of doing that, you've both been taking advantage of me. I can't keep supporting you at my own expense." She laughed. "We're family. That's what family does. They help each other." "Family doesn't lie and act entitled to something that isn't theirs," I stated resolutely. "This is my house, and I've made my decision. You have 2 weeks to figure things out." Natalie said nothing in response. She simply shook her head, picked up some of her belongings, and headed off once more. Naturally enraged when he learned of the 2-week notice, Alex screamed, "You're really doing this?" "You had over a year to get your life together, Alex," I replied. "You're really throwing me and my pregnant wife out on the street? This isn't my fault. It's yours. You made bad choices, and now you're dealing with the consequences." He stormed off, slammed the door behind him, and spent the rest of the night sulking in his room. Over the next few days, Alex did everything to convince me to change my mind. Saying I was leaving him in his hour of need, he phoned family to guilt-trip me. He even had some pals get in touch to tell me I was being unreasonable. Still, I maintained my position. After weeks of back and forth, guilt trips, and confrontations, I finally lost my tolerance for Alex. I had been more than fair to him. Alex had made it plain he wasn't going to be leaving voluntarily, and I wasn't about to allow him harass me into backing down. I therefore accomplished what I was supposed to. I gave him a formal legal notice. It was not a simple choice. On so many levels, evicting your own brother seems bad, but Alex had urged my hand. Legally, I told him, he had 2 weeks to leave the grounds. He chuckled when I gave him the notice. If he didn't, I would have to take matters to the courts, and that was something I really didn't want to do. "You're seriously doing this? You're kicking out your own brother?" Alex asked forcefully. "I've given you plenty of chances to turn things around, and you've done nothing but take advantage of me. This is my home, and I've worked hard to take care of it. You can't just waltz in here, claim you have rights, and expect me to roll over." He crumpled up the paper and tossed it on the floor. I grabbed up the paper and tossed it back to him. "You're unbelievable. Do you even care about family, about my baby? What am I supposed to do now?" "Figure it out, Alex. You're about to be a father. It's time to start acting like one." The next 2 weeks were trying. Alex sulked in his room most of the time or grumbled loudly to everyone who would listen. Of course, he used every trick in the book to postpone the inevitable. "She's not moving back in, Alex. You both need to concentrate on finding a place of your own." She stopped right away. Saying I was dumping him and his pregnant wife onto the streets, he called relatives to disparage me. "He's your brother," one of my aunts replied, reaching out to attempt to guilt-trip me into letting him stay. "You can't just abandon him like this." I gently said, Alex had been living rent-free for over a year, how he'd lied to Natalie about owning the house, and how he'd refused to take responsibility for his life. I had done more than enough for him. At some point, you have to draw the line. Funny thing was, most of the family didn't even offer to take him in. They criticized me quickly, but they were not so ready to volunteer. Typical. Alex became increasingly desperate as the deadline drew near. He began uttering promises he couldn't maintain. "Just give me a little more time," he said. "I'll start paying rent. I'll get a job. I'll do whatever you want, man." I shook my head. "You've been saying that for over a year, Alex. I'm done waiting. The notice stands. You have until the end of the week to leave." When the last day arrived, I really wasn't sure whether he would truly leave. Part of me anticipated him to push me to bring him to court and dig in. Surprising me, though, he began packing. Though he put his items into trash bags and shouted curses under his breath the entire time, it wasn't exactly elegant. By dusk, Alex was gone. He didn't say goodbye, didn't thank me for all the time I'd allowed him remain, and he didn't even glance back as he left the door. The house felt oddly silent after he departed, slamming the door behind him like a disgruntled teen. I had my house back, first in more than a year. There was no more drama, no more freeloading, no more bickering. Though there was relief, it was also sad. Alex was my brother even if he had driven me nuts. A few weeks later, I learned via the grapevine that Alex and Natalie were residing with one of her cousins. Kicking him out felt like severing ties, and I wasn't sure whether we would ever be able to mend our relationship after this. Alex left my house about a year ago, and honestly, life has been calm. I'm not sure how long that agreement lasted, but I hoped it would provide the wake-up call Alex needed to get his life together. By design, I haven't heard much from him personally. I blocked him on all he left that day. Of course, though, news spreads quickly in our family, particularly on drama-related issues. Family have so sent me a few updates. Apparently, Alex and Natalie moved up with one of her family after I kicked him out. That configuration didn't hold very long. From what I heard, Natalie became bored with Alex's lack of drive and rejection to take on the role of husband and soon-to-be parent. When it's not relatives footing the tab, freeloading doesn't go very well. The baby was born a few months after they left my house. A tiny girl. To be honest, I feel sorry for my niece sometimes. She didn't ask to be born into this turmoil, and knowing Alex and Natalie, I doubt she has much stability in her life. Still, the major drama surfaced when Natalie sought divorce. As it happens, Alex did not instantly become a responsible adult when the baby came. Astonishing, I know. He was still blaming everyone else for his difficulties, unable to hold down a job, seldom assisted with the baby. From what I've been informed, Natalie is remaining with her mother and concentrating on raising their daughter. At last, she had enough and kicked him out. Alex is couch hopping once more. Alex tried to reach out to me a few months ago. I heard he tried moving back in with one of his previous girlfriends, but it didn't last either. One of my social media accounts received a message request. He had to have created a new profile after I blocked his old one. The message was the typical Alex stupidity, long-winded, full of explanations, and guilt-ridden. He said he wanted things fixed and missed his big brother. I didn't even reply when he begged if he could stay with me once more. Just for a little bit. Blamed Natalie for their divorce, said he was going through a difficult period. I instant blocked the new account. That hardly stopped him from trying, though. He tried to grab my attention by sending messages across several accounts over the next 3 weeks. Everyone was more needy than the previous. Though I've heard it all before, he said things like, "You're the only family I have left, and I swear I'll change this time." Alex doesn't change. He only finds fresh means to pull people down with him. The last straw came when one of our relatives called me. Alex reportedly had been crying to them over my leaving him in his hour of need. Why couldn't I simply give him another chance? They questioned me. I put it all out for them. They said, "He's your brother," as though it absolved everything. I told them how I gave Alex over a year to get his act together, how he lied about owning my property, how he let Natalie try to push me out of my own house, and how he showed zero gratitude for anything I'd done for him. I have done more than enough for Alex. If you think he deserves another chance, you're welcome to take him in, but I'm done. That shut them down fairly fast. Funny how people are usually so eager to advise you to forgive and forget, but when it comes to stepping up themselves, they're nowhere to be found. Blocking Alex was the best decision I have taken in a very long time. I feel as though for the first time in years, I can really concentrate on myself free from the drama dragging me down of others. About shutting him off, do I feel guilty? Actually, not very much. Alex made decisions, now he is coping with the results. I gave him more opportunities than he was due, and all he did was exploit me. You have to quit allowing people, even family members, to use you at some time. Regarding Natalie, I have little pity for her either. She made her fair share of entitled demands and wasn't exactly a saint while she lived in my house. At least she had the sense to leave Alex when it became abundantly evident he wouldn't be changing. That's the update. I hope for my niece's sake that Natalie gets her life together and provides that small child the stability she needs. Alex is still Alex, aimless, blaming everyone else for his difficulties. He has attempted contacting several times, but I have blocked him every single time. I'm through providing his safety net. Perhaps I should change my mind should he ever really turn his life around. I am maintaining my distance, though, until then. For now, I'm just going to enjoy my calm, drama-free house and concentrate on myself. Life is too short to squander on people who respect nothing or your efforts. Having gone through all I have, I believe I deserve it. Story 2. I was smack dab in the center of a family drama that felt like it could compete with anything on daytime TV, on a scorching summer day, the kind that makes the air thick and heavy. Though my family was casting me as the self-serving monster, honestly, that is quite different from the truth. I was 24. I just needed to let someone else outside this mess vent. Maybe get a different viewpoint. We must go back around 7 years if we are truly to know how I arrived. Fresh out of high school, I was living with my dad, stepmom, and occasionally Elena, my 32-year-old stepsister. Dreaming about college was something else. I could virtually taste the freedom of university life, smell the musty books, and hear laughter in the residences. I thus sat my dad down and spoke with him about my intentions. He truly dropped a bomb on me. He had been squirreling away money in a college fund for me all along. She seemed more than perfect. I only needed that admission letter. And speculate what? I understand it. I was thrilled to be admitted into a nearby community college. About set to rejoice with my dad, I practically flew home. But the scene that met me was not festive at all. When I blurted out my wonderful news, my stepmother was there and she knocked me with a bucket of ice water. The funds? Missing? Dedicated. She seemed to be acting as though it was no big issue. Apparently something more urgent had come up, and I should just pause on my whole future and wait another year. My pulse dropped. Looking at my dad, expecting some sort of lifeline, he simply nodded like a bobblehead. I found it unbelievable. What could be more important than my college fund? I managed at last to choke out. And at that point everything got quite messy. Looking as though he would sooner be anywhere else, my dad said they had given Elena the money. Elena, my stepsister, was always a bit of a wild cannon. She had dropped out of high school, had a run of dubious partners, and was now 25 with 3 children from 3 separate dads, none of whom were in the picture. And to further complicate matters, she carried twins. Apparently, my dad and stepmom thought it their responsibility to assist Elena in improving her living circumstances. I went silent. You handed her money for college? I asked, shocked. She was a single mother with 4 children, so they argued she needed the aid. I said that my education and future were equally vital. He simply waved and advised me to reapply the following year. What if she conceals another child next year? I turned back, the fury building. He answered nothing. That evening I cried, feeling totally deceived. They threw my dreams aside without thinking twice since they were so determined to simplify Elena's life. I wasn't going to allow them, though. Though I knew I could do more, I had passed my last tests. I cleaned my tears and then began looking for scholarships. I resolved myself to write my own fate. Also, I did. Under a full scholarship, I enrolled in a university out of state. My ticket out of that muddle was I packed and headed off without much fanfare. I was surrounded with people who valued Elena's drama above my future. I turned away my dad's repeated attempts at calling. I was keeping on. There were 7 years elapsed. After graduating, I landed a fantastic job and started a life for me. My firm then moved me back to my hometown last month. Speak of a turn of events. I moved in, and a few days later, my stepmother phoned me. She had to use my uncle's phone. Indeed, years ago, I banned her number. Elena had dropped a bomb. She had left her children. Now they were 6, 9, 10, and 12, and had not seen their mother in weeks. My stepmother begged me to let them into our house. Are you kidding me? I said, utterly stunned. She continued on about how my dad was retired, not working, and unable to handle the children. I cut her off right away. She called me savage and heartless. I told her I was doing better than her daughter, who hardly bothered to raise her own children. "Would you be asking Elena to take in my kids if I left?" I begged. She was silent in response. Years later, here I am, and it seems as though the whole cycle is beginning once more. Once they screwed my future, they now expect me to tidy Elena's mess? Not even a chance. I informed my stepmother that although my dad intended to squander Elena's college fund on her, that was his decision. I wasn't about to be the rescuer for a lot of kids Elena didn't want. I advised her to cease phoning me and instead look for her own daughter. A few days later, Dad phoned. He really apologized for leaving me all those years ago, for not even checking in during my own college struggle. Hearing him say that, and really mean it, knocked me down. I have forgiven him. Regarding Elena and my stepmom? That is rather another soap opera, though. Elena returned home momentarily with some man she said would be marrying her, but the kids returned home, and my stepmother unintentionally leaked the truth about Elena's past, and the guy bolted. Elena is blaming her mother now for wrecking her life, and my stepmother simply wants Elena to bring her children back. Me too. I'm arranging for my dad to reside in a decent, peaceful area remote from all the turmoil. Though he wasn't perfect, he is still my dad and deserves some rest. All right, so life decided to toss me another curveball, as if the entire Elena story wasn't sufficient. This year it was Sarah, my wife. Married for 9 of those years, we had 3 lovely children and had been together for 10 years. We had created a house, a family, a life. She also cheated out of the blue. That Thursday afternoon was just another normal day. After showering when returning home from work, I was lying in bed next to Sarah, attempting to relax. She was getting ready for her shift, and I was idly browsing TickHub, not really concerned. Then I received a text from a number I couldn't identify. "Is this my name?" It asked. Yes, comma. I said. They asked once more, verifying my whole name, and I answered. Then the bombshell. "I'm extremely sorry, but I have to inform you, your wife is cheating on you. I have texts to validate it. My blood was frigid. Then this guy emailed me images of chats Sarah was having with someone over a coworker who was courting her. She was lighthearted about how she had created a monster and remarked she would never go for a coworker, particularly not a married one. The tone then shifted, though. She was clearly having an affair with another man, and she was bragging to this person in the texts. I thought of myself as having been punched in the gut. Around me, the life we had created was collapsing. I asked Sarah to come outdoors to chat, as I couldn't just sit there. I set it out and showed her the screenshots. She naturally initially responded in denial. "You're insane! I would never do that!" Still, I knew I was ready. I told her it was time to be truthful, and I had evidence. She had it all over her face and had this tell when she was lying, a particular look in her eyes. She finally acknowledged flirting with another and sleeping with one man. Though in my thoughts I was shouting, if she's admitting to that, what else is she hiding? I had always been honest with Sarah and myself as well, that infidelity was unacceptable. I used to declare, should that ever occur, I would drop her in a heartbeat. Now, though, confronted with it in reality, it was far more difficult than I had ever dreamed. The mother of my children, she was my wife. Those promises were what I intended. Maybe I could forgive her if I could only think she was really sorry. It would never happen again. Nevertheless, how could I? Trust was broken. Mostly for the kids, we resolved to pursue marriage counseling. To be honest, though, I'm not convinced it will work. How could someone claiming to love you act in such a manner? She's been doing all I have asked since it all came out, but is it ever going to be sufficient? I have not told many people. Knowing this would permanently sour her relationship with my family, hence I'm concerned that even if we try to sort things out, I feel like yelling it from the rooftops at the same time, though. Trying to sort out which emotions I should pay attention to and which direction to follow, I'm a disaster. Here I am, then, putting everything out there, looking for some advice, some direction, from anyone who has gone through this. Although no one else can decide for me, any assistance in sorting this mess would be much valued. All right, So on top of juggling my own marital problems and the never-ending Elena story, another family matter arose to try my endurance. This time it included a lot of diapers. My sister Maya, her 7-year-old kid, and C. Maya discovered black mold when her apartment building caught fire a few stories above. She and her son were momentarily collapsing at our house as the summer heat swirled around everything in sight. My nephew is a wonderful child today, although he still uses diapers occasionally and has autism. Though it's not a constant, it does happen. Our 3 children are our own. Our oldest is 9, and our younger 2 are 4 and 2. My husband went all out last summer to get this large pool for the backyard. With children constantly in and out, splashing and having a great time, it has become the neighborhood hangout. The parents are also really cool. They help to keep the yard neat and occasionally host spontaneous barbecues. Pastimes have seen Maya and I disagree. She asked some strange questions regarding her son's food, and even made a little joke about my nursing him. Still, we resolved it. Now, things have been thrown off by this entire diaper dilemma. Maya wants our house to be a diaper-free zone, until he is totally toilet-trained, as my nephew has been having more mishaps lately. She heard me say that was absurd. She could just keep him upstairs if she was concerned about him embarrassing her. It was just too hot to have all these children confined indoors away from the pool. They needed some fun and cool-off time. Maya lost it and said her son felt excluded as he couldn't swim with his relatives. But I cannot give one child's circumstances first priority over the safety and enjoyment of every other child. She claimed I should make certain plans for him and accused me of not being sympathetic. He is not my child, though, and it is not as though the other children will give a damn about his sporting a diaper. She is rather offended with me. My husband suggests perhaps we could close the pool for only family for a day or 2. I'm beginning to question now. Am I acting sensibly here? All right, last narrative, I swear. This one centers on my other sister, Chloe, who, at 35, sees herself as somewhat the household goddess. She stays at home full-time, has 5 dogs, and 2 middle school children. Her spouse works. She looks after the house, the food, the kids, the entire 9 yards. Chloe is really proud of her cooking. She enjoys cooking for people and is continuously experimenting with fresh ideas. The truth is, though, she's not as skilled as she believes she is, and her kitchen hygiene, simply said, it leaves much to be desired. She never ties her hair back, hands that hardly see the sink, and the dogs are virtually part of the kitchen team, so hair everywhere. Although our family constantly raves about her cuisine, really thinking about how it's made makes my tummy turn over. Typically claiming I'm overloaded with work or not hungry, typically not wholly a lie given my employment, I have become a master at avoiding dinner invitations. But I couldn't really say no when she organized a dinner party to honor her husband's promotion. Given their open floor layout, the dining and kitchen areas are really one large place. From my position at the table, I thus had front row access to the entire cooking display. And what an exhibition it was. She was cooking, wearing a huge knit sweater, her hair down and flowing freely, and I even saw her lick her fingers after scratching herself and then touch her dachshund right there in the kitchen. But the last scene is amazing. To reach for something, she placed the dog on the counter next to the cutting board. The dog began licking the uncooked hamburger meat she had left out. I shrieked. I tried not to gag for the whole dinner. I basically concentrated on chatting and hardly tasted my dinner. Of course, Chloe questioned me straightforwardly why I wasn't eating. At first, I attempted to explain that I wasn't particularly hungry, but finally I had to be sincere. As softly as I could, I told her her cooking methods were really nasty. I spoke of the hair, the dirty hands, everything. She was really shocked. She began to cry, mentioning how hard she had worked on the dinner, and here I was calling it disgusting. She even said I was simply jealous since I had no family to prepare for. At that moment, I lost my cool and told her I was done having the conversation, that I wouldn't consume things that bothered me, and I left, saying I was exaggerating, that the meal was good, that nobody else had ever complained. She and her husband blew up my phone all night. Yes, I feel guilty for bothering her, but I answered truthfully when she asked why I wasn't eating. To be clear, there were only 3 of us there. not some large family gathering. Now, though, I'm wondering if I truly was the jerk for speaking my truth. That is thus what you have. 4 events from my life that make me wonder about my place in all the drama. Maybe occasionally I am the jerk. Perhaps I ought to be more sympathetic. Alternatively, perhaps I'm just trying to create limits and shield myself from the anarchy. I'm not sure. Still, it felt good to get all on my mind released. Thank you for paying attention.